Alright, so we are at the beginning of August now, and even though I haven't been spending too much time out here because of the extreme amount of heat, and also there have been tons of things going on outside of the garden, which I'll also share with you, there have been a lot of things going on in the garden behind me, things that just basically have been going on by themselves, a lot of interesting observations, and today I'm going to share that with you in our August garden tour. Let's go. Hey and welcome back to Mini Urban Farm, a channel about gardening and homesteading in the suburbs. My name is Veronica, and on this channel I talk about everything suburban homesteading and gardening in small spaces. So if that sounds good to you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos just like that. Now today I do want to share with you guys before we get started with the video that I am actually going to be increasing the price of my Starting Your Urban Vegetable Garden workbook. That is going to be increasing on Friday. That's this Friday, August 5th. Alright, so you have from now until then to get the original price on that entire workbook. It is a 46-page guide to starting your urban vegetable garden in a small space just like mine and maximizing your food production in your backyard. Alright, it walks you through everything that you need to know in order to start a backyard garden. Go get that if you're interested in it. It's going to be increasing by August 5th. So on to the video. Now, the first thing that I will say about this garden tour is that it is not going to be pretty. But because I have not been intervening in this garden for a while now, it's been at least a few weeks, nature has pretty much taken over and we have some things growing that I was not able to get to grow before. Basically, we have not been spending, or I have not been spending a lot of time out here because we've been going through a family death, alright? So my grandmother passed away and that was a big deal because I was really close to her and my entire family is very close, and she was kind of the matriarch of the family. So we kind of took it, or we did take it really hard, and we've just been using this time to rest and, do some other stuff outside of the garden, which is why I've been missing. The second thing, which I'll be sharing with you in one of my upcoming videos, a little bit more in detail, is that I have been taking some time to rest for me personally because I had a miscarriage. Alright, all of this happened within several weeks of each other, so it's been a lot lately. And one of the things that I think I was scrolling through Instagram or something like that, one of the things that I have really been taking to heart this month is that it is okay to step away from the garden and rest and just be done for the season. And for whoever needs to hear that, all right, because I know that I definitely needed to hear that and it was just perfect timing. It is okay to be done for the season, all right, especially if it's 105 degrees out and things are being eaten alive or whatever the case is, all right, it is completely fine to step away and be done with the garden. However, all right, I did not rip everything up. Everything is still a giant mess behind me, but we're back in the garden and back home and just ready to start scratch and re-preparing for our fall garden, which is pretty much what we're gonna do today. I'm gonna do garden cleanup, but before I do that, I'm gonna share with you what exactly is going to be staying here, because there's definitely some things that I'm gonna be leaving in place as perennials and planting around them, and there's other things that I wish would have grown sooner, but we are going to be ripping them up. So let's turn the camera around and I'll show you what I mean. Alright, so in our bed over here, this is something I planted just before things kind of escalated with my family, but this is our okra. So okra does really well in hot climates, which is why I planted this out. These are a few weeks old now. We have several varieties in here. Some of this is pink okra from Baker Creek. Some of it is, I think it's called Jing orange okra, also from Baker Creek. And then over on the other side of the garden, over there, most of this is going to be the heavy hitter okra, also from Baker Creek, I believe. Right, it is kind of spaced very crowded together, mainly because some of it I didn't see germinating, and then I planted out a few more seeds just in case, like these ones over here, but they will have to be thinned, and these will hopefully be producing into November, and then time to harvest them and plant out more cold weather crops in these 2 bins. Now, right next to that bin, all right, my compost is doing pretty well. I have definitely been filling it pretty vigorously. So we have a lot of pine shavings in here from our chicks, and I'm going to be adding some more greens to this. Basically, with all of this stuff, these as you can see, are my Roma tomatoes. Now, these are pretty much ready to go. I have not been getting any fruit off of them, and what fruit I did get was being taken over by pests. But something really interesting happened since everything just kind of like went wild here, and you can see some of these little poles are just not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Something really interesting happened in the sense that because there was a lot of pests in here, there was a lot of predatorial insects that came in, some wasps, and basically there's none of the pests that like were here before. It balanced itself out. All right, a lot of the herbs I think next to it has really helped it also, but the same thing on that side with my Roma tomatoes, the exact same thing happened. So if you're not familiar with permaculture or predatorial insects or anything like that, basically if you leave nature alone to destroy your vegetables, right? If you leave the pest in place, eventually other insects that like to prey on those pests will come in place and basically take care of the problem. All right. In order to do that, you have to allow your pest problem to take care of itself. All right, you can't really come in and do too much intervention, but right now there's really no pest. All right, the balance has, it has just balanced itself out basically. So right now we don't have a lot of cutworms, we don't have a lot of the leaf-footed insects. We do still have some, and there's definitely, I think a few stink bugs and that sort of thing, but definitely nature has balanced itself out because I have been intervening so little. Now in the process of that, your plants do get destroyed quite a bit, but if you can attract some of those beneficial insects, those predatory insects, then your garden will be better off in the long term. All right, so clearly that is gonna go today. We're gonna rip that out, put it in compost. What will be staying though is a whole bunch of these herbs. Now this oregano I bought from the store maybe just about a month or two ago, and I planted it. It was looking really bad, and basically it's just jumped right back up. It's been spreading and just doing really well. I use this to cook with a whole bunch, so I have been taking from it. It's not like this has been left alone tons, but this has been doing really well. The same thing with my lemon balm over here. This was getting eaten alive at first, and now no bugs. The same thing with this one over here, and I have another one over there, right? That one has been growing a bunch. So this little area smells very fragrant. We have lemon balm, we have oregano, more lemon balm. There's some basil in here. This is, I think, lemon basil from like a while ago, and then a whole bunch of parsley. Oh, and actually we have a little caterpillar that made its home here, so I am very excited to see that. Look at that. I believe that is a swallowtail butterfly caterpillar or a monarch. I can't remember which one. I think it's swallowtail because we used to have a whole bunch of those caterpillars all over the parsley, and that's what they turned out to. And you guys, oh, and there's another one. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited, you guys. This is the first time I'm seeing them out here today. So yeah, every time that I plant parsley, and it's specifically this kind of parsley, all right, this is the Italian flat leaf parsley. Every time I plant this, I get a whole bunch of these little guys over here, the little swallowtail caterpillars. So something just to note, usually they don't end up anywhere else except my parsley. I'm not sure why. And then of course we have this basil, which has been doing pretty well. Definitely curling up a little bit, but doing over, pretty well so far. And then this little mustard plant, which is trying to go to seed. I have gotten a whole bunch of mustard that has been trying to go to seed, but then, I don't know, something comes and gets it or whatever. All of this used to be mustard. I think it's just way too hot for it. So this will definitely be coming up today, along with the rest of them. I'm going to just get rid of the soil. And then I might actually leave this in place just like that and compost them in place with some soil over them. The same thing over here with my mustard, right? Little baby seeds starting to sprout now. All right, this is the red, Japanese red mustard, which I'm going to replant out next season because I love those. Scallions growing like crazy over here. We've been using these. And then arugula, which is definitely going to go. This is supposed to be back in this area. And then behind it is my kale. And I'm finally actually getting kale. It does look like it's been getting a little bit of damage, but my kale is growing because before it was being eaten alive, before it even got to this size. So I think next season, or rather in fall now, I'm going to start these in little red solo cups. I have like an entire stack of them over there just waiting, and I'll show you guys. These trees are so quick growing, my moringa trees. But my kale, I'm going to start them in little red solo cups instead of direct seeding them. Everything else, like the mustard that was here and my patch of arugula down here, all do really well direct seeded, but for some reason my kale, it gets eaten before it gets, like, you know, to grow. So that's one thing. Been left alone and it's surviving. My arugula over here definitely needs to go. A lot of it is just crunchy like this. And put that back into the garden. Ooh. And then I have tons and tons of tomato vines and plants. Oh, and the sun. And these are my cherry tomato plants. They're not doing too well because, as I mentioned, the flat leaf, I think they're called flat-footed or flat leaf insects or something like that. And I can see one right there. I don't know if you guys can see it, but they kind of took hold of this. I haven't seen them too bad lately, but especially, like, it's been really, really hot outside. A lot of these blooms are not blooming. I think tomatoes need, like, I think it's up to 95 or something like that. Don't quote me on it. But a lot of these blooms are not doing really well because of the extreme amount of heat. And then I just have not been picking them because there's just been so much other stuff going. So a lot of them are just icky, and they haven't been dropping. So yeah, these things gotta go. All of these are gonna go, and I don't know if you can see it with the sun, but this little trellis here is actually leaning over because of the weight of some of these plants. Now behind it, or actually below it, these are yellow beans, which have been doing really well, surprisingly, because they were pretty much dead. And I don't know, it just came back to life, but not really to produce fruit. They're just doing really well. Also gonna go, and I will leave those in place. The rest of them and my green beans also have been just burnt, so those are gonna just I'll clip them and leave them in place. And these giant tomato vines have got to go because they are pulling back my trellis. This is supposed to be much further that way, and it is just it's gotten so heavy with all this stuff on it. So those are gonna go. And then lastly, over here, my Roma tomatoes again. These ones took on a whole new life of their own over here, but they're not producing. And the same thing over here. They just kind of like vined themselves out. But yeah, I did get a pretty decent harvest off of them this season, so I can't be too mad. Basically, we're gonna do some garden cleanup starting right now. Alright, so the first thing I did was cut back everything that I couldn't easily access the roots for, right? And then I was able to actually get down to the roots and rip them all out. These are the Roma tomatoes, which were the first thing. Next up, I went ahead and got up those bean plants out. They were pretty much dried anyway, so I just ripped them up, and I did leave those to compost in place. And then after that, I went ahead with my cherry tomatoes using the same method, just cutting back anything I could to get the weight off of this trellis. Now, I like to compost most things in place, but I tend not to do the tomatoes in place just because they could be diseased, or, you know, I just don't like to leave them in place. So those ones I put in the compost bin, or just get rid of the extras. Now, this season, I'm going to be taking much more of a permaculture approach, meaning that I'm going to leave things that are perennials that are doing well, like my herbs, my oregano, my basil, things like that, and also let them go to seed at the end of the season, because that will definitely attract pollinators, which is what we want for the garden. Alright guys, everything is pretty much ripped out. As you can see, I've hung some of the drip irrigation lines up on the trellis. The trellis is still leaning, but we're going to try to reinforce it or push it back or something. Everything that you see here is either like the herbs and the scallions that I've left, alright, because they're doing really well, and I'm going to leave those as perennials, or it is just stuff that I've ripped up and left to compost in place. I will come back after this is a little bit dried up, and I will add in my compost for the next season, as I always do. These are my green beans and my yellow beans, which will just add some organic matter back into the soil, and then the other side the same thing. Everything that's like in these giant piles here on the floor are tomatoes. I'm not going to leave those in place just because I don't want them to root themselves in the soil. I'm leaving the majority of the drip irrigation hung up on these like trellises, or on this trellis, but I do have this one drip irrigation line still feeding to the herbs over here that are doing really, really well. So those are going to be probably used to propagate in the near future. The same thing with this over here, my scallions, and that is pretty much the garden. But what I will show you guys is these two trees over here. These are my moringa trees, and they have been doing really, really well. I grew these from seed last season, I think, or at the beginning of this season, I can't remember, but look how pretty they are. All right, I absolutely love the leaves on these guys, and it is definitely time to pot them up into bigger pots. These are 3-gallon pots, and they are pretty much my height now. All right, this tallest one is probably around 5 and 3 inches tall, so I'm a little shorter than that, but yeah, definitely doing really well. Definitely hot mess over here. Also, I have to continue watering my spearmint because with the amount of sun that it's been getting, it's just like fried up. The same thing with some of this the stuff in the sad little greenhouse over here. This basil I just cut from the garden. I topped the basil so that it grows bushier, and I'll put this in water and use it for cooking. But yeah, the garden is pretty much cleaned up. Once this stuff settles just a little bit, I will take it and put the majority of it in the compost bin, or at least as much as I can fit over there in the compost bin, and just let the garden rest. So this is something that I've definitely been putting off for a little bit now, just because I've been really preoccupied and really tired with all the other stuff going on, but the garden is finally cleaned up. Time to start fresh, planting out seeds and preparing. All right, there is a lot of prep work that goes into next season's garden. So one of the things is putting down more compost, adding in whatever nutrients back into the soil through worm compost, and just other like fertilizers in the garden. I have my okra going on both of my my raised beds over here, so they'll be ready to harvest around November or so, which is the perfect time to start planting out some of these things that I have that I will have in the greenhouse as seedlings by that time, and also planting out some of those like radishes and root crops. Here in Central Florida, zone 9B, I don't really get a lot of cold temperatures up until about November, and that's not really cold. It starts getting chilly around that time, so around September now I will pick it back up and start, you know, adding things back into the garden. So basically time to order seeds. If you haven't done so already, if you're in this zone, I have been working on it little by little, getting my seeds in the greenhouse, ordering them, that sort of thing, and then just letting the garden, you know, take a rest until September. If you guys like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I appreciate you guys watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.